On today's show, we may not have clarity, but we do have an update on the injury to Ottawa Senators defenseman Nick Jensen.
And we continue on with our season in review with the fourth line. 4 players, but will any of them remain there next season?
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Tuesday, May 20th, and Pillsy, God love Bruce Garriock. I mean, Scoops coming in hot last night, gets the source from the league that Nick Jensen went to New York City to get a procedure done, did undergo surgery, but he doesn't know where on his body, and he doesn't know how long he's going to be out.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Garriock, also not a doctor. Brandon Piller, not a doctor. Who knows what Nick Jensen's surgery was for? One of the things that was interesting in the article, though, Ross, is Bruce talks about, well, if you're wondering why Jensen didn't have the surgery till now, 3 weeks after the Sens have been eliminated, they were looking for multiple different options and trying to decide what the best route is for his recovery of this unknown injury. Although anyone that's been following the Sens knew that Nick Jensen had, I don't want to say serious, but something concerning going on, as it was a maintenance day every day. So many morning skates and optional skates he wasn't there for. Game time decision tags being put on him multiple times throughout like a 3-4 week span. So clearly there was something up. And I think, Ross, again, we don't know what's going on here, but I think doing surgery in the offseason was probably the right move, and you hope that he's all healed up, rehabbed, recovered, ready to go by the time training camp comes along.
I mean, it's coming up pretty quick, not tomorrow by any means, but when you have surgery, it's a longer recovery timeline, and even though it hasn't been made public, I'm sure the Ottawa Senators internally have a good idea of when Nick Jensen will be able to get back healthy and on the ice. Great to hear it went well. Awesome that he's taken care of this. Obviously, I'm sure it was discomforting, not only on the ice, but just living every day away from his family this year, coming up into a new country. And he adjusted unbelievably well playing alongside Thomas Chabot. So I think it's unfortunate that the injury happened. It's too bad that it did affect his play to a certain extent. He was still all right, but he wasn't the dynamic puck moving. Usually when you say dynamic puck mover, I think it kind of, you get that Erik Karlsson thought, but in a different way, he kind of was. Like, he was so smooth with the puck coming out of his own zone and making that initial pass to break it out. So I hope he can get back to that. He's obviously turning 35 now, but it got taken care of. The only worry for me is that the fact that he was trying to find a different alternative is a little telling to me, because they couldn't, that it's probably serious. Again, I know you clarified, Bruce, and you are not a doctor. I am also not a doctor.
Okay, Ross Levitan coming out as not a doctor. Let it be known.
Yeah.
But Ross, it was concerning because during the regular season, it wasn't that crazy to say Thomas Chabot and Nick Jensen were this team's best, most consistent D pair. Come playoff time, I think it's probably not crazy to say they might have been the worst pair in that series up against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, I'm not trying to dog on Nick Jensen, who battled through injuries to show up and play in the playoffs. Don't get it twisted. That's not at all what I'm doing here. But it just goes to show how seriously he was affected. And then when he's seriously affected, how much that affected Thomas Chabot's ability to play at the level we've seen him play this season as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. As you mentioned, he's 35, serious injury here. Can he sustain the type of play and the amount of ice time that we're going to expect to see him play next season, still under contract, if he's paired with Thomas Chabot again? That's where the Ottawa Senators are going to have to make a decision and be like, look, do we think we can run back a D pair that had success last year? Or considering Nick Jensen may be injury prone now, again, no fault of his own, do we need to have a contingency plan in case either A, Nick Jensen misses a lot of time again, re-injures himself, or isn't ready for the start of the season, or B, he's just not, even if he's healthy, he's not able to play at that level of a second pair defenseman, and maybe you consider pairing him with Tyler Clevin, which is actually something I think would be a really nice D pair, but then you've got a guy making $4 million playing 13 to 15 minutes a night, which isn't exactly ideal for the Ottawa Senators.
Nick Jensen had 13 of his 21 points this season in the first 29 games. And then it was just kind of, I would say, survival mode for him. He signed for one more year at $4.05 million. And I'm just going to say this because I saw on social media, some people were kind of hypothesizing about what could happen. An injured player cannot be bought out. So don't think that just because Nick Jensen went under the knife and is injured, that he can just be no longer on the roster.
There's people calling for a buyout?
I might have seen one.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Certainly wouldn't be the player I'd be targeting for a buyout. I'll say that right now.
Okay, well, we'll leave that little tease for closer to the buyout window that happens right after the Stanley Cup Finals wrap up. But Nick Jensen, man, hope you're feeling better. Great guy. We got to meet him at the gala. Obviously, we had his wife on the show. They're very passionate, great people, and we're rooting for Nick Jensen to come back the way he was at the start of the season. Would be great to see. Now, with that said, let's play a little hypothetical. Nick Jensen unavailable at training camp. Does this elevate from a Colin Miller type to a legit top four defenseman? Or could you even be comfortable if you know that Jensen's going to be back in November or December, that Carter Yakimchuk can get a taste right off the bat?
What about option 3, Ross? Short-term option, but how do we feel about giving Max Gaudette a bigger chance?
I mean, Steve Stamkos did say that opportunities with the Ottawa Senators are earned, so you could look at the games played down in Belleville and All-Star and everything last year and say, yeah, he's probably earned another shot. He has played games in the NHL, and I don't think made much, if any, of an impact in those games. No, I'd probably go with Yak.
No, and I'm not saying that was my top choice, just something to consider if you're looking internally, but I don't know. Maybe I'm on the wrong side of this, but for me, Ross, I would like to see Carter Yakimchuk start in Belleville, just because.
I would too, but I'd also like to see Nick Jensen start training camp with Ottawa.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying, Ross, is option C and B are out for me, and I'd like to look at option A, bringing in another veteran defenseman, or at least a defenseman with NHL experience. I'm not talking about a guy in his mid to late 30s or anything like that. I'm talking about a guy that has at least a couple of hundred NHL games played under his belt and is looking for a short-term opportunity in Ottawa. The reason I want to see Yak play in Belleville, Ross, is because he's a physical player, and I want him to experience what it's like now going from playing in juniors. Sure, he got a taste in the NHL preseason. I'm not discounting that, but preseason, very different type of competition and players you're going up against an NHL regular season. I want him to see what it's like playing a physical game up against men in the AHL, at least for a little bit. And then he's going to be playing top pair minutes, top power play in Belleville. So I just think that's where he should start. But having said that, I would be so stoked if Yakimchuk gets the opportunity to start in the NHL, because he is electric. I'm coming around every single opportunity I have looking at Yakimchuk being like, no, this actually was the right style of player for the Ottawa Senators to pick. Do I still think maybe they left some talent on the board and there was other options available? Yes, but I think the way that the Ottawa Senators want to play, Yakimchuk fits that style, and he can grow with this team nicely.
Yeah, and he's going to have to earn it if he is going to start in the National Hockey League. So a nice carrot dangling for Carter Yakimchuk, seeing a player at his position potentially missing the start of the season. I'm excited for that more than anything. Even just seeing how Carter Yakimchuk looks at development camp at the end of June and into July. It's his second year there. He should be able to dictate everything on the ice. He is far and away the Senators' number one prospect.
Oh yeah, it's not even close. So where do you put him? If let's say it's going to be short term, under a month till Jensen comes back, where would you slot him?
I probably, and this is going to be a hot take, but I put him right with Jake Sanderson, and then I put Shabbat with Zub.
I knew you were going to say that. I think it's too much too soon. I don't love it, but I probably put him with Clevin just to shelter him a little bit more. And
don't you think it would? I get like higher competition and everything, but don't you think sheltering him would be playing him with the best defenseman on the team?
Yeah, that can be a way to look at things, Ross. But for me, I want to shelter him in a way where he's playing less minutes up against lesser competition. And how fun would that be to get Clevin and Yakimchuk playing together? That's physical. Yak can move the puck. Clevin can be the physical defensive guy. But I mean, those are two very young defensemen that you're pairing together. Although, I mean, Clevin and JBD played well. JBD obviously much more experience than Carter Yakimchuk, but it'll be interesting to see because also, Ross, you think about it, sure, he's a year older and has more experience, but if Yak had the preseason he had and that wasn't enough to get him into the NHL, what's he going to have to do, or what does he need to prove to the Senators executives that he should be there?
Yeah, he's gonna have his hands full, but he's got the talent, he's got the size, and he's got the skill. I think the last thing I'll say about this is playing with Sanderson means you're also playing with Timmy and or Brady and or the more talented players up front, which goes hand in hand with the skill set that Carter Yakimchuk has. Fair. If you haven't seen the video, Carter Yakimchuk dangles everybody courtesy of Elite Prospects 7 minutes of his best highlights before the draft. All right. Speaking of the draft, when that gets time, it'll also be free agency. None of the players we're covering today are signed for next season yet. How many of Fabian Zetterland, Adam Gaudette, Nick Cousins, and Matthew Highmore will be back? We'll break down their seasons next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Ross is getting into them right now. Ross, what flavor do you got there?
Always the lightly salted, big fan of them. They are the oysters of the tree. You crack them right open. No mignonette required, and just pop them back. Absolutely delicious.
Love it. And that's a good way to get protein in because each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you, unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Ross is a lightly salted guy. I like the salt and pepper, a little mix, a little spice, a little flavor in there. But if you don't want the shells, check out the no shells variety. Perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether you're snacking at your desk during the podcast, on a road trip to Ottawa, or you just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to snack. So get snacking, get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
All right, Pillsy. So we wish the best for the health of Nick Jensen, but it does leave even more uncertainty with the defensive side of the game for the Ottawa Senators. Last week, we discussed options on the back end that the Senators could target in free agency. So you can check that out wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Pillsy, we've got our list of Senators free agents, players that haven't signed yet. We did get some news on Friday with Sam Gagner being hired as the director of player development, Matt Turek coming in as the Belleville Senators general manager. If you had to guess, who's next to sign, whether it's a restricted or unrestricted free agent, who do you think it'll be?
Let's get Claude Giroux done.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm answering the question you're asking, who I think will get done next, Ross. But
who you want?
But we've talked about it, Ross. Part of me thinks it could be true because that's the domino. Like once Claude Giroux gets signed, then all right, we need to fill this position or not. we have this much cap space or not, because he's the biggest domino to whether he's going to be a top 6 forward, play on that third line, whether he's going to sign a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, I don't know, a 3-year deal. I don't even think is that crazy. How much is he going to sign for? Like, everything happens once you know whether Claude Giroux is signing and how much and how long.
And then you can go to battle from there. Lots of people think the Sens are going to be aggressive this offseason, and I'd love to see it. But at the same time, we saw some of the players this past year that came in took a little time to adjust. Linus Ullmark, most notably. Obviously, David Perron had some other things going on. But Michael Amadio, first 13 games, no goals, but then settled in. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much they tinker with the chemistry of a team that made the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. Hey, speaking of the playoffs, the Final Four is set, and they'll take on each other tonight. By the way, I was wrong. There was a game during draft lottery night. Somebody pointed that out.
Okay, I thought I was going crazy there. I was like, I swear this is the first no hockey night in a while.
I think last year there wasn't a game on draft lottery, and that was a lottery I cared a little bit more about, even though I did watch the balls bounce 4 times. And the Islanders win the draft lottery. But who's going to win the Stanley Cup? The Dallas Stars, the Edmonton Oilers, or the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes? The East Final begins tonight. Tomorrow we'll have Dallas and Edmonton. And we loved following our hashtag Sens Abroad, especially during the worst years in Ottawa history. We were looking for anything to get the heart pumping. So we wanted to know now. We waited until there were only 4 teams left. Which former Senator that's still alive in the playoffs would you be happiest for if they win the Stanley Cup? 3 of the 4 players remaining are on the Dallas Stars. No Panthers are former Senators. No Hurricanes are former Senators. We do have Connor Brown with Edmonton. Josh Brown as well. He's been healthy scratch for all but I believe 1 game. And then with Dallas, you've got Cody Ceci, Evgeny Dadonov, and Matt Duchene. Pilsy, who would make you smile the most as you saw them spinning around the ice with the Stanley Cup?
I picked Matt Duchene, Ross. Maybe I'm in the minority of Sens fans here, but I loved Matt Duchene when he was in Ottawa. Some of the best productive seasons in the most meaningless, darkest times in Ottawa Senators history. But if you're a Matt Duchene hater, or you're upset that the return certainly wasn't close to the value of the cost of bringing in Duchene, that's fair. I get that. But go watch Matt Duchene highlights when he was an Ottawa Senator. So maybe that's not the right way to look at this, Ross, but I was a big Matt Duchene fan when he was in Ottawa, and it's been a weird career arc for Duchene. So I think it would be nice if he got the cup.
Okay, well, everyone can go have their say on Twitter at Send Central. We've got over 500 votes already. 16% went with Matt Duchene. I'm going to take the guy who there's 18% for, and that's Cody Ceci. Much malaligned, obviously had his fair share of lumps from the fans while he was in Ottawa, went to the conference final, the only guy on this list of players who was on that team the last time the Senators had playoff success, and most importantly, he's an Ottawa boy, so he's going to bring the Stanley Cup back to Ottawa. So I'm going to go with Cody Ceci, who's bounced around like a pinball since leaving Ottawa. Toronto, Edmonton, Pittsburgh, San Jose, and now Dallas. 5 teams for Cody Ceci now, and he's a free agent this offseason. Do not get any ideas, Steve. The highest amount of vote is actually Connor Brown, 65%. So people want, I don't know if that's because they're cheering for Edmonton as well, the only player on the Oilers we put down here. I saw my future on FanDuel for $50 for a Canadian team to win the cup. So that's basically, well, it is an Oilers ticket now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I got the same bet. I don't think I got the same odds as you, but I got the same bet. And now that the Leafs are out, Ross, we can fully cheer on
big
them.
time. And you've got the Stars too, so you're solid for at least one little nibble in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. I put the future on the Stars as soon as they acquired Cody Ceci. I was like, that is the missing piece for the Dallas Stars. All jokes aside, I did do that, but it was also bringing in Mikael Granlund. I thought was a great move for them.
Mikko Rantanen didn't tip the scales.
Well, by that point, I already had my bet in,
Right.
and the odds changed drastically when they acquired him.
Oh, right. They got CC like a week before. It was before the deadline. I thought it was
No,
deadline day.
I think it was multiple weeks, maybe even a month before the deadline. They were that was the first big ball to drop as far as contenders making trades.
Well, other than Carolina getting Rantanen.
Fair.
February 1st, the
Okay,
trade
yeah.
went down. So there you go. Yeah, a month and a week before the deadline. So there you go. From the Stanley Cup playoffs, where teams acquire players to push them over the edge, the Ottawa Senators acquired Fabian Zetterlund right at the deadline with a minute to spare. How was his season? And then we'll check in on the fourth line of Gaudette, Cousins, and Highmore. Next, you're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Billsy. So, Stanley Cup playoffs continue tonight between the Florida Panthers and Carolina Hurricanes. A reminder that there are Locked On shows for every team, so you can go check those out if you want to get dialed in for round 3. Wild to think, and I mean, this is the time where it's gone from 16 to 4 teams, but Pillsy, like, the teams that win and the teams that make it to the finals, they're only halfway there. Like, doesn't it feel like the playoffs have been going on forever?
Yeah, when you put it that way, it is crazy. Like, you're like, oh my God, we made it to the conference finals. Yeah, you got 8 more wins to go to get there. Like, I don't care what anyone says. I will not hear an argument otherwise. The Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy in sports to win. And if you want to debate me on that, I'll hear it. But I guess I'll double down emphatically even more. The Stanley Cup is the most beautiful trophy in all of sports. Miss me with the Lombardi Trophy is embarrassing. It's a Super Bowl, and it's not even a bowl. Don't get me started on that. The whatever the NBA trophy is, nobody even knows what it is because it's so terrible. That sucks. The World Series is just a bunch of flags. Like,
yeah,
the Stanley Cup is the best.
Easily, not even close. The Super Bowl isn't a bowl. That's a great line there. And to win that thing, you need depth. And the Ottawa Senators went out on a mission to acquire more depth as a scoring winger. Let's start today's season in reviews with Fabian Zetterlund. It feels like outside of Claude Giroux, we've spoken the most this summer about Fabian Zetterlund. Makes sense because outside of Claude Giroux, Zetterlund is going to command the highest salary as a restricted free agent. We've talked a lot about the salary, but let's talk about his play. What was your immediate impression when Zetterlund was acquired? And then how did it develop as you watched him play 20 games for the Sens?
Immediate impression when he was acquired was I was so excited. Like, what a move for steady Stevie Stamkos to pull off with seconds left before the deadline. A package involving a Stapchuk, Gregor, and a second-round pick. Zetterlund comes back the other way. This was a guy, a shooter, a physical player with good 5-on-5 analytics. That's what the Ottawa Senators needed, and they found it. I didn't even know Zetterlund was available or rumored to be acquired by anyone, so it came completely out of left field. But when he was acquired, it was kind of one of those, like, okay, you got a good player, but where does he fit? And that was what the Ottawa Senators struggled with, and Fabian Zetterlund struggled with, was finding a fit for him in this lineup. And Ross, we're doing our season in review for fourth line players because he spent, I think, statistically, majority of his time on the fourth line with the Ottawa Senators.
It's interesting to say that when he has the talent that he does. And I don't think it helped either that Brady Tkachuk was in and out of the lineup from the time that he got here. I shouldn't even say in and out because he'd come back from the Four Nations injury, but then missed the last 8 games. Yep. Felt like they had trouble. Are you left wing filling in for Brady on the top line? Are you playing right wing on the fourth line? Travis Green obviously wasn't touching that Pinto, Greg, and Amadio line. And then Cousins came in, Dylan that is, and fit in so well with Perron and Batherson that they didn't really get much of a look. So it's a rare circumstance where a player is basically either on the first line or the fourth line with no in between. So I think next year it's going to be critically important for Zetterlund to have a home and not be this bounce around type player. Otherwise, you might get numbers like this: 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points, -1 with 4 penalty minutes with the Ottawa Senators this season. And if you look at the game log, Pillsy, I mean, it tells the whole story. In a number of games where he played under 14 minutes and a number of games where he played over 18 as well. So it was just kind of a bounce and up and down year for him. He actually played 84 games as well. So it was a lot of hockey for him with the trade coming over. Finishes with 41 points overall on the season. And I think he's poised to break out next year for Ottawa. A lot of people are, I don't think chirping about it, but like, I don't see it with him. It's not showing up on the box score. But if you watch the game, for a guy who's 5'11", he plays hard. He's going in the forecheck and finishing his hits. He's got a great shot. He knows how to get into the quiet areas. He's just going to have to work on finishing those opportunities.
Yep, and that's fair. But we know Fabian Zetterlund has the ability to finish. Ross, in 2023, 2024, he had 24 goals with the San Jose Sharks. Last little tidbit from me on Zetterlund: I'd like to see him playing the left wing. I want to use him kind of as a Russian sniper type player. You know, those Russian snipers, they love playing their off wing. He's a right shot. Get him on the left wing and just tell him, anytime you get the puck and you have a lane in the offensive zone, just grip it and rip it, because he's got that shot and we need a shoot first type winger somewhere in the top 6. Now, if you're drawing conclusions and you're reading between the lines, I guess what I'm saying, Ross, is I want Fabian Zetterlund as this team's second line left winger, and I'd like the Ottawa Senators to look elsewhere to find that top line right winger to play with Timmy and Brady.
Okay, that's very interesting to note, as we've got Zetterlund's skill and also the fact that his age fits in so well with the core of these players, but the production just didn't match it. So next year, the production has to be there. Looking at over 20 goals, over 50 points easily needs to be the expectation for Fabian Zetterlund. Let us know in the comments your thoughts, concerns about Fabian Zetterlund after coming over from the San Jose Sharks. I know we've mentioned this 100 times, but it is important to note when talking about Zetterlund. He also struggled his last midseason trade, 0 goals in 22 games, and then was awesome the next year. All right, Bill, the Adam Gaudette was awesome this year, period. He came over on a 2-way contract that, yeah, sure, it was going to pay him a lot in the AHL. The guy led the AHL in goals last year, but he came into camp, worked on a 2-way game, impressed, got put on waivers, but then called right back up and played the entire season with the Ottawa Senators. Adam Gaudette finishes with 19 goals in 81 games, Pilsy. He's due for a nice payday.
Yeah, I think so. We've already kind of dived into this a lot, so I'll just kind of quickly rehash some of the points. I think him and his agent are going to look in UFA to get one big 1-year ticket with a rebuilding team. I think he's going to join Mitch Marner in Chicago. I think that's good additions for the Chicago Blackhawks. But to add something a little bit more fresh and new to the Gaudette discussion, Ross, is I know people got on him when he was in his dry spell. Like, man, this guy does nothing if he's not scoring goals. But he was such a good 5-on-5 player. We talked about it, tied for forwards and plus minus with a +12. And when we're looking 5-on-5, I kind of knew this, but wasn't 100% sure. So I double checked it. Adam Gaudette led the Ottawa Senators in 5-on-5 goals with 16. Like, Timmy was next with 14 goals. Like, this guy was a great 5-on-5 player. And then, Ross, you go to goals per 60. Adam Gaudette led this team by a mile, especially considering he spent most of his time on the fourth line. And this is all 5-on-5 stats, waiting for my NHL.com page to load. But he was the leader, 5-on-5 goals per 60 by a large amount.
And he was great in the face-off dot, even got a couple of runs on the penalty kill. He was a staple on the second power play unit for a lot of the year. He was the guy that Travis Green really, really trusted. And I think all credit goes to Adam Gaudette. I think he kind of committed himself to saying that, look, I need to be able to impact the game in other areas when I go on a long pointless streak, which did happen this past year. But good for him, man. I don't think it's going to be in Ottawa unless he really loves Travis Green and loves the circumstances and wants to take a big pay cut. But jokes aside, I mean, just had his second kid, and he's been bouncing up and down from the AHL for the last couple of years. So I think for him to get term is most important, and I don't think the Sens can afford that. So good on him, man. He's a guy that will get a nice, polite clap when he comes back to play Ottawa as a visitor. And if they want to offer him a novelty contract just to say, look, we respect you and we'd like to have you back, but we don't think we can, get into a bidding war, then sure, but he ain't coming back.
So, Ross, if you talk about term, would you be comfortable giving him a 2 or 3 year deal?
If the
price is right?
Under what? Like I'm allocating at most $1.3 million for a fourth line center. And
okay, 3 years, 1.3. Do you do it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but he's not taking that. Because what? He's 28 years old right now. 29.
Yeah.
I'd give him 3 years of that. I'd give him what did Mark Kastelik sign for? I'd give him that exact same contract.
I think 4 years, 1.37.
No, 3. 3 years at 1 point. No, I wouldn't give him that. Sorry.
Yeah.
1.56. That's a lot of money.
Damn. Attaboy Casty.
Yeah, good for Casty. Hey, the Senators are a factory. If you are out there and you're a fourth line center and you want to get paid, come sign a 1 year deal in Ottawa. You'll get money on your next contract.
Nice.
That's my PSA. All right, Pillsy. Stanley Cup champion Nick Cousins comes in. He had highs, he had lows. And he had a busted up knee that he fought like hell to get back and make sure that he was available for the playoffs. Missed game 1, but was back for game 2 through 6. I like the player. I like the fit in the locker room. I think the price has to be right on Nick Cousins, who finished this past year with 50 games played, 6 goals, 15 points, was -1 with 41 penalty minutes. How do you look back at the season of Nick Cousins?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the injury is kind of the big thing, and that's a major knee surgery injury after his collision up against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He did come back, but he was no, I think it's fair to say he was a 0 in the playoffs. Unfortunately, literally zeros all across the board, other than shooting a puck at Anthony Stolarz during warmups. That was the most buzz or interest that garnered around Nick Cousins, which is unfortunate. He was a guy you brought in because you're like, if and when we get to the playoffs, we need a guy that has experience and that can be a bit of a rat going up against other teams. And we didn't see that at all, in my opinion, with Nick Cousins in the playoffs. In the regular season, yeah, we saw it a little bit, got under guys' skin. But, I mean, 15 points in 50 games, Ross. I think Nick Cousins in a full season, you're hoping, 25 points? I think it's fair to say as a fourth-line guy. So, if he's able to get 25 points playing majority of a season on a fourth line, I'd bring him back. I mean, they signed him for 1 year, $800,000. You want to convince him to stay close to home. He's a Belleville native. I would do 1 year, $900K. Give him the Martin Paolo $100K bump to keep him around.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind that at all. He was killing penalties for them a little bit this year. He had 85 hits in 50 games, and he scored some big goals, man, in terms of like breakaways. He was finding his way to get loose, and obviously a leader in the room, but you have to make sure the price is right for Nick Cousins.
And just quickly, Ross, one more thing. He played a good stretch on that third line with Shane Pinto and Ridley Gregg. So, if you need him for a short period of time to play up in the lineup a little bit, that's something that I'm comfortable with. So it's nice to have guys like that where it's not just like you're stapled on the fourth line, and if someone gets hurt, we can't elevate you. I believe you could elevate Nick Cousins to a third line for a small sample size.
Nick Cousins will be turning 32 in July. So he'll be 32 years old when next season goes on. All right, Pillsy, Matthew Highmore, basically Spider-Man meme looking at each other, Nick Cousins and Matthew Highmore. Matthew Highmore kind of endeared himself as a bit of a pest this season, playing 41 games for Ottawa, contributing 2 goals, 6 points, and 1 saved goal, one of the plays of the season, knocking the puck off the goal line in that Philadelphia game right after the trade deadline during the winning streak. How did you think Matthew Highmore adapted himself to being a full-time NHLer once again?
I mean, Matthew Highmore brought speed to this lineup. When they trade Noah Gregor away, they lost that speed attribute in the bottom six, especially. So that was nice to see. He killed penalties. He's a Travis Green guy going back to their days in Vancouver. He's a guy that got under other players' skin. There's so many times where Matthew Highmore's on the ground and a player's just fuming, and he's just got that big grin, just laughing at them as they go off to the penalty box. So,
this one?
yeah, that's one of them for sure. So a guy that other teams hate to play against, they're just annoyed by him. 41 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, -5. I don't know. I'm kind of done with Matthew Highmore. I feel bad, nothing against the guy, and he's a hard worker, and even in his time in Belleville, he did decent, and clearly the Ottawa Senators wanted to bring him back. He was one of the few veteran players that in the offseason in Belleville, the Ottawa Senators brought back, at least in the forward side, but I don't see a right fit in Ottawa for Matthew Highmore anymore.
No, me neither. I think, look, hey, he's been here for 2 years now, and both years he's split between Belleville and Ottawa. Obviously, a lot more in Ottawa this year, almost flipped in a way.
Yep.
He played 23 games in Belleville, only had 2 goals and 10 points. I was like, hey, this is the guy we're calling up at that time, but he played his role. He played it fine. I think this is going to be a situation where Steve Staios is going to have to take away the toy from his head coach, because Travis Green obviously loves him, loves what he does on the penalty kill. I personally don't think he's a great penalty killer, but he's out there all the time. I think Michael Matteo would have been a better option to have on the PK than that. I think you could go with my guy, Tim Stützle, on the PK. I know you're against that, but overall, I just think that Matthew Highmore, if he gets a one-year contract, one-way contract, I should say, with an NHL team, it'll be more of a rebuilding team. Why not San Jose reunite with Noah Gregor? But all that to say, I think it's been 2 years. There's other players that I want to see get opportunity that are not going to be 30 years old next year. And it was one of those, like, if he maybe played a little bit better and Nick Cousins obviously had that injury, maybe you're like, hey, should we give Matthew Highmore that one-way contract instead of Nick Cousins? But if you're asked, 1-year contract, $900,000. Are you giving it to Nick Cousins or Matthew Highmore? I think it's a slam dunk. Everyone knows the answer.
Yeah, you're leaning Nick Cousins there. I think Ross, especially you talk about Travis Green and his guy. I think there was a lot of eyebrows raised when Matthew Highmore was in the lineup for game 1 of the playoffs. And I think that just was not the right roster decision. Now, who knows? Maybe Nick Cousins.
I heard he wasn't good to go.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So maybe that was part of it. So we got to give that context. But yeah, we can look elsewhere for fringe AHL, NHL players, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's our reviews for all the players that played for the Ottawa Senators. Tomorrow, we're going to do the management and coaches. How does the power play, penalty kill, all the analytics match up between last year with Jacques Martin and DJ Smith splitting the head coaching, with now having a full season of Travis Green? And hey, it's been pretty much 2 seasons of Steve Staios. So what's been the progression from one year to another? Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Yes, final thoughts for me, Ross, is yesterday we discussed a hot topic. Should the Ottawa Senators sign Mitch Marner? I believe we both emphatically said no thanks, or hell no, was the exact quote. So Ross, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they did the thought process, if you can't beat them, join them, by signing all the Florida Panthers in the offseason. So tomorrow we're going to discuss, should the Ottawa Senators sign John Tavares, Matthew Nyes, Nicholas Robertson, Max Pacioretty, Pontus Holberg, and Steven Lorentz.
That's so funny. No, we're not going to do that.
No.
Wait,
all jokes aside, would any of those guys interest you, though? I'm more looking at like Pacioretty, Lorentz. Like, what about Lorentz on a fourth line?
Sure. Yeah. Instead of Cousins. Like, I wouldn't have them both.
Yeah. But I don't think, like, where does Max Pacioretty? That's just another aging third line.
Yeah. We don't need that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go here. Mitch Marner asked if he wants to be a Maple Leaf next year. Quote, I've always loved my time here. Loved being here. Past tense.
Yeah, I was going to say those are double past tense. There's no way Mitch Marner goes back to Toronto. Like
I believe I said yesterday 0%.
Yeah, I think I had it at 15. I'll knock it down to 5%. Like the way he's been treated by the fans, the media, and just how he's always the guy to blame, and the reaction and just how things have gone. It would be crazy for him to be like, you know what, sign me up for 8 more years of this. I know, obviously, when you're making 8 figures, sorry, definitely not 7 figures, 8 figures, you know, that can help you stay somewhere, but he could get that money anywhere other than Ottawa. So yeah, he's gone.
Okay.
Marner's leaving.
Marner's leaving. Hey, you know who has arrived? The Minnesota Frost coming to Lansdowne. TD Place Arena. The PWHL finals begin tonight. It's a best of 5 series between the Charge and the Frost. And the Charge have already taken control of this playoffs. How? By beating the team that picked them. The first place Montreal Victoire said, we want you. And then they lost right away. Thank you for coming out. So now Ottawa, the city's going to be buzzing. Glebe Central Pub's just down the street. So grab a pint there. I know they got a bunch of pregame festivities. It's just going to be an awesome atmosphere. Ottawa is such a sick hockey town, and we're not the guys to get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on. We tried that right when they got the team, and we're like, man, we put so much energy into just covering one hockey team. 2 is too many, but Jocks and Jills, all the PWHL content, Chris Sinclair, they do a fantastic job of getting the ins and outs. So I'm just going to watch as a fan tonight at home on TV. I know Gwyneth Phillips, the rookie goalie for Ottawa, has been absolutely red hot, so she's going to need to be that. And what I'll say too, Pillsy, is this is how you win a championship in a 2-round playoff. Round 1, they knocked out the regular season champs.
Yep.
And in this, the second year of the PWHL, they have an opportunity to knock off the defending playoff champion. So if you want to be the best, beat the best, and nobody would be able to take this away from the Ottawa Charge.
And Ross, another thing with the PWHL, they're expanding Vancouver and Seattle teams. Neither of these 2 teams are going to look the same next year. Like all of the teams that are in this league right now are going to get a bunch of players plucked from the roster. So you got one less chance with the whole group together. So get it done. Team of Destiny, the Ottawa Charge.
Let's go. Cannot wait to see how rocking TD Place Arena is tonight at Lansdowne. They'll play games 1 and 2 in Ottawa, then games 3 and 4 in Minnesota. If there is a game 5, do or die, it'll be back in Ottawa.
Ooh, nice.
So that, I mean, I don't pretend to understand the rules and all that, but how does Ottawa have home ice advantage? Like, were they ahead of them? Maybe they were.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, they were tied in points. Ottawa had more wins. There you go.
Okay.
So both lower seeds then won the first round of the playoffs.
Let's go.
That's cool. All right, sweet, man. So hockey's still buzzing in the nation's capital. We'll be back tomorrow to review the head coach and the general manager of the Ottawa Senators before putting our draft suits on. Top 50 countdown begins on Thursday. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.